Welcome to the webinar exploring the Service Catalogue. My name's Ollie Smith and I'm a service management consultant here at TOPdesk. Now, before we continue, I would like to go through some basic ground rules for this webinar. The duration of the webinar is approximately going to be 30 minutes. The webinar will be recorded, so if you need to leave before the end of the webinar or you want to review the discussed topics, then you can always view the recording afterwards. And you can use the panel on the right-hand side to ask us questions throughout the webinar. One of my lovely colleagues will be helping you out with your questions. Please make sure you collapse the panel on the right-hand side if you're not asking the questions, as it will cover up some of the presentation that's being shown. And as always, we will follow up via email if we don't have time to answer your question today. So if you need to leave before the end of the webinar, do not worry, we will be able to get back to you with your answers. So this webinar is for people who are looking to create a service catalog and portal, but don't know where to start, or you have a service catalog, but find that the uptake from your customer base in your portal has not been what you hope to reach. Now, the service catalog and the portal are generally quite personal to individual businesses. So if you are after a more detailed analysis of the portal, then please feel free to get in contact with us about it, and we will endeavour to help you. So now the groundwork is completed, let's get on with the webinar. So this is an outline or a process in which we're going to follow over the next 30 minutes. The aim of this webinar is to get your organization to the point where you are ready to start asking the right questions, identifying the right people, and integrating with your processes. So you are then spending less time working on tasks that don't really interest you, and more time working on tasks which are interesting to you. And you then also have the data at the end that allows you to report accurately. So we will be using this process of defining, to identifying, to creating, and finally integrating throughout this webinar with a few thought-provoking examples throughout. Now, the first two stages are very much contextual, and the last two move on to a more practical perspective. So let's begin. First of all, going to look at the defining phase. Let's look at defining your services and your goals. The first thing we need to do is look at what a service is, and more importantly, what is a good service. So the definition in front of me and in front of us, a service is a means of delivering value to customers by facilitating outcomes customers want to achieve, whilst the ownership of specific costs and risks. So if you look at the bold words within this definition, we need to really understand, what do the customers really want to know? They only want the products and services that deliver value to them. Therefore, it would be sensible to suggest that the product and service is defined around the customer. They don't care about the costs and the risks of that service. All they want is the outcome. The customer doesn't really need to know the intricacies of the service, and frankly, the majority probably don't care. They see it and understand it as one thing, and that is the outcome that they are going to get. So when you look at it from your portal, you need to focus on the services that deliver the valuable outcome to your customer. So that's a service, and an understanding of what as a service is defined as. But then we need to look at the service catalog as a whole. Now, the service catalog is a collection where you display your services and your products on offer. So you can use it to help your customers know what they can request and under which conditions they can request. So this allows for that one location for the customer where they can find all of the information they need, no matter which department or who is responsible for that product or service. Now, the service catalog can be used in two ways. Namely, you have your informative, I need to answer a question, I have a request, so your informative way. And then as well as that, you have your call to action. I need to report a malfunction. I need to report that something is wrong. So you need to, before you even think about that, you need to really put yourself into your customer's shoes when you're looking at your products and services. And then you need to translate them into terms and concepts which are clear to the customer. They need to be understand what you mean. We also need to define our goals. Designing a service catalog and a portal is a project. Depending on the size of your company, it can be, or the department, it can be a really big project. And like any other project, you need to plan and define your goals before you begin so you can truly understand them. Now, every company, obviously, and every department is going to be different across different industries, but generally one thing which stands out as pretty homogeneous throughout is the greatest commodity to you is your time and your money. So how can you use your service catalog and your portal to save time and save money? Well, number one, improving your customer independence. If they can solve their issues or triage their calls instead of you, but via the portal, then they become more self-sufficient, which is the ultimate goal, and you are able to spend time on other issues like solving structural problems, which probably is more interesting. The other side of it is the usability for the customer. You need to have quick results so that you can provide easy access for desired information. I don't necessarily want to go onto a portal and have to click 10 times in order to find what I want, with numerous very confusing aspects through the middle. I don't want to have to figure out some game theory algorithm to get to where I want to go. It needs to be quick and it needs to be easy. I don't necessarily want to think about whether I need to turn for certain questions or not. And finally, sharing your processes. So what I mean by that is you don't want to necessarily have a customer view that it's going to be handed over from one department to the other. The customer logs and it goes to HR, which then hands over to facilities and then IT. Remember that the customer really only wants to focus on their outcomes. They don't really want to know about the handovers between the different departments. And so if you can share your processes together, then you can save time, you can save money, and you can also make the customer a lot happier. So that centers around our defining stage. And what we really need to now look at and move across to is the identify stage. So once you've defined your services and your goals, you need to identify your target audience and what you represent to them as a department or organization. So let's think about who your customers and your stakeholders are. Let's try and put our imagination caps on. I know everyone's very good at that. And just imagine you're in a supermarket. Now, are you the type of person who pre-plans a list before they've left the house? They have their list of shopping. You go directly through the supermarket doors and you know exactly where all your products are and you go directly to that product. Maybe you even have a list which is aisle coordinated, so it's in aisle order and you can take the most efficient path to the till at the end. You don't want to get distracted by other products you may see, and you don't really do that. If you're one of those, if you're the type of person who does that, then you're probably a searcher. You're going to be entering a portal and you're going to be searching through a search bar, and you're going to need a strong search functionality. That has actually got to the point with the Google effect, which is quite visible now in the field of service management, whereby customers really expect the same services when they're searching to what they used to in Google. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, that's not me. I don't create lists when I go shopping. So you might be also, there's another type of person. You might be that type of person who enters a supermarket and decides they want to walk down, up and down every aisle. You're letting your stomach lead the way. You haven't really got a plan about what you're going to have for dinner that night. You're checking all the special offers, leaving the supermarket with this whole host of products you didn't know even existed before you entered the doors. If in that respect, you're probably a clicker. So you need a service catalog, personally, that's going to be structured and clean so you can get to where you're going quickly and easily without needing to do any searching. Now, the rest of the slide kind of covers who your customers are and your stakeholders are, aside from whether they're clickers or they're searchers. So remember, number one, that a service is defined around the customer, and the customer has a vested interest in the outcome. So therefore, they are the beneficiaries of the service. The customer needs to know the overview of the services in offer. They need to be able to find out what service you have, where they are, and when they can expect to see them. But also, it also gives a good basis for further agreements to occur between you and the customer. You know, if they know where the services are, they know when they can have them, and further agreements occur, and they're able to further those between you. They also need to know, very importantly, the ground rules of your service. You know, if it's Sunday night, then potentially they don't need to expect that in 1 minute's time they're going to receive their product or service. From a departmental point of view, your service catalog it solidifies the reason for your department's existence. It shows the customer what you do for them. And it allows the department to, again, from the other side, give a guideline for future customer discussions. And it, as well as that, and probably just as important, it manages their expectations from a customer side as well. You are therefore more in control of that service and that product. So you've identified your customers and your stakeholders. Now you need to look at identifying your services. So what I would do first is I would map out the impact of each specific product and service and their importance. So what is the impact of each service and product? Are there any consequences when a certain product or service is unavailable? Now, before you've actually, if you haven't started your service catalog properly yet, this is probably quite difficult. But what you need to think about is a start point. You need to think about what your specific products and services are. And, you know, once you get to a point whereby you have implemented a portal, maybe they need to change. Maybe you need to look at doing some improvements on them. But to start with, try and look at the consequences for each product and service and the impact of each one. And as well as that, ensure that your documentation is up to date, as that generally is a common point of reference when you're looking at malfunctions in products and services. Now, a very important aspect of this part of it is this is the point where the customer knows best. They are the ones who are going to be using the service. It doesn't matter whether you think that you have worked in an industry for X number of years, you know what the customer wants to do. At least go and speak to the stakeholders and the customers and let them have their say on what they think the portal should look like or the catalog should look like. Brilliant. So we have now defined what we mean by a service and our goals, and we've identified the stakeholder base of services that you offer. Now comes the fun bit, structuring it coherently to make the best value for your department and your customer. Now, when I'm actually within consultancy and going out and visiting customers and implementing TOPdesk, I often use the example of a shop to introduce the service catalog. You should see yourself, as the shop owner standing behind the till. Your customers are coming in through the door and leaving out the door, and the range of products and services that you offer are throughout the shelves around you. So using that example, I'm going to give you a further example. So I'm currently, sitting in London. It's raining and grey outside, and I think I want to just move to the beach. And I've decided I'm going to go and open up a surf shop called the Surf Shack. Now, after spending a lot of time looking at stages 1 and 2, I've identified and I've defined I now need to create a service catalog and a portal which works for my customer base. I defined my goal as creating a surf shop portal for the tech-savvy generation. So I've understood my products and my services, and I get them all down, and now I want to look at the structure of my catalog. A lot of these services are very important to my organization, but are they really important to my customer? And remember, they care about outcomes rather than intricacies, rather than how you actually get there. So if you look at the services here, these are all the services that I think I need. I can see I've obviously got a card machine. That is hugely important for me in order for the customers to actually pay for the products and services that I'm offering. But do they really need to know about that service and product within the front end of a portal and within the catalog? Just because it's important to me doesn't mean it's very important to their customer, to my customer. So you see, whilst there's the washing machine and the dryer, it's very important to my business, but the reality is my customers only need to know that they've got clean and dry wetsuits before they actually put them on. That's the outcome. So therefore, we want to eliminate the products and services that do not directly affect the outcome for the customer. So by eliminating these products and services, which do not directly affect the outcome, we can start categorizing them under head tiles. By categorizing them, we're going to start to try and produce a cleaner and far usable portal for my customers to navigate around. So as you can see from the example, we're trying to create this cleaner, more efficient way in which I can go, okay, I want to look at my board, I want to rent a board. There we go, I go into hire, rentals and board straight away. Much like if I wanted to go and look at my reception and lockers, I would go to reception and then lockers. So as you can see, it's as much about structuring the catalog to meet the customer's needs as it is about defining the services for the customer's wants. Now, I'm sure many people listening and watching would probably love to move to the beach and open up a surf shop, but it's not always realistic. So let's try and think of a more realistic example from this that we can use for you and your organizations. Now, actually, if you're working within facilities, for instance, then this actually could potentially work for you a little bit. You've got your reception and your security, and you're building and maintenance, and that actually fits reasonably well. Granted, you may have more services, but it fits reasonably well into a majority of different organizations. Let's think from an IT perspective. Let's change lessons and hire to hardware, and then rentals to computers, and then boards to laptops, and you can probably get a better drift of how you can actually utilize this structure within your portal. So we've now got this table, and we're going to look at it as in the TOPdesk portal with all of the icons and how it actually looks when you're using TOPdesk. So the first thing, whenever we go into organizations, that I always hear and I always see is that silos are always, that organizations want to create silos between teams and departments. So HR want to have a tile on the portal, IT want to have a tile on the portal, finance want to have a tile on the portal, and so on. But the reality for the customer is, first of all, it isn't clear which department they need, and they don't want to know. It may be clear to you, but it definitely isn't clear to them, and they don't really want to know. They just want that outcome. So whoever is responsible for printing or mobile phones or commencement of a new employee, they don't care. They want to see that new employee going through. They don't care about it going from HR to finance to IT to facilities in that new employee process. So you need to focus on a customer-centric view rather than a siloed view. As well as that, and something that's massively overlooked, is using pictures or icons to draw the employee's attention or the customer's attention to the tile. You know, when you think about it, when you go onto Amazon or you go onto other service catalogs, it's as much about the tile, the picture in the tile telling you where to go as it is the words. In fact, my brain probably works that I would look at the picture before the word first. So really try and get an icon and a picture which draws the customer's attention to it. And finally, don't be afraid of using a service or putting a service under different head tiles. You know, there can be lines of clicks that can go to the same service through different ways. Don't be afraid to use multiple tiles for a service. So you've got yourself your home page, and you go into the service. The service is really easy to navigate. Now you need to have your service template. So what we really want to do from that is I prefer to have these templated as a service. I think you don't want to miss out any important information. You need to have a clear heading and a clear subheading, and you would need to really use this time, because you're not necessarily going to speak to them on the phone. This is a chance to describe what the service or product you offer, and perhaps even sell that service and product in your words. It needs to be detailed enough so that the customer understands what they're getting themselves in for and what the service is. And you should also really ensure that your terms of supply are there and they're accurate, because this is, again, what I was speaking about earlier. This is about managing the expectations of the customer. If you have a good terms of supply, when they go into this page, they see it in front of them. Great. So you now have your goals and your services defined. You've got your customers identified, and you have built a beautiful portal to be proud of. So now the proper work begins. We're moving into integrating them. So once your services have been defined, agreed, and managed, you need to think about the next steps to integrate what your customer sees with what your operators need to know. So first of all, what is adding value? Well, we've got our service level agreements. So if you know where you have a portal, then your server, it allows you to create your service level agreements beforehand. It includes the types, the number of products, the services to be delivered, and when they need to be delivered, and at what cost. Now, the service catalog can also form a basis for other agreements, both from an individual user about the exact form of products and services, and with the business about potentially the expansion of services or products, and it leads to development of new products and new services for your organization. Now, SLAs, I always see the SLAs can be used, if mature enough, as the definition of success for your organization. It's something that's easily quantified and is easily measured. So the next thing we can look at in terms of adding this value is through your forms. Now, your service, you've gone through your portal, they've got your service, it's just sitting there on your portal. What you need to create that link between the customer and the operator. And this is quite a powerful link that you can create. So a form needs to be created in order for that link to occur. That form is the link. When you're creating a form, you can map the answers that the user gives to different fields, and therefore you can help triage the call to different queues. You can start hard coding business-facing categories, and you can allow the ticket to be logged in the same way every time. Those business-facing categories, they are effectively like a mirror to the customer-facing categories. They don't have to be the same words and the same thing, because they may be completely different. They may be very technical, but it allows that mapping between the two. And once you can do that, when the ticket is logged in the same way every single time in the back end, even if it's logged in a different way in the front end, you can then map your processes directly to your call. You can start mapping templates to each time that form has been filled out, so that your time and energy is only spent on activities rather than on logging. And finally, a very important aspect of the portal is your reporting. Now, creating a portal whereby all your products and services are categorized and triaged consistently will improve your reporting no end, because the user is coming through and as I said before, it's homogeneous. They're going through the same form, and you're able to map those answers and when they're entering that service to the same fields. So it's consistent. So when it will improve your reporting as you can trust the data that you have at your disposal. So it looks like we're finished, but there's actually one more thing we need to cover. We've gone through the process of defining, identifying, and creating and integrating. But the work really has only just begun, because as you can see with the blue arrow coming round, there's the continuous improvement that needs to be made to the portal. So, when you set up your service catalog, don't just set it up once and then forget about it, which I do see a lot happening. It happens all the time. They set it up, it's fantastic. The portal setup was fantastic, but the really important work needs to be done now. It's about evaluating and regularly updating the portal. So you need to go and speak to both your customers and all the end users and the operators about potential improvements that can be made. One really good way to do it is using the reports of the services. If a service is being requested over and over and over again, but the tile that you've created, that there is no tile on the portal, then that tile needs to be created. Or if no one's actually going onto that tile, maybe it's just sitting in the wrong place and no one knows where it is, it needs to be moved. So it's about adjusting that service catalog by adding new products and services and then phasing out potentially current products and services. Now, deciding on the responsibility for managing the service catalog is a tricky one. You can either do that via each service, or you can have someone managing the service catalog as a whole, but you do need to have someone who has that responsibility to move forward with that. So just as a recap, and I've just got that slide with this with the information we just had. Just as a recap, we need to define your services and goals by putting yourself in your customer's shoes and focusing on outcomes. You need to identify your customers and your stakeholders and who they are by looking at the importance of each service to the customer, and think about the impact to the customer that service has if it's unavailable. Then you need to start creating defined templates to ensure continuity and a clean feel to the portal, and you make sure that you have your terms of supply communicated clearly, as these are your rules. And this allows you to manage your customers' expectations. Try and map and integrate your business categories, your SLAs, and your processes to services through forms to automate processes and homogenize that data, which allows for accurate reporting. And finally, the job has only just begun. It must be continuously updated and improved. So thanks everyone for listening, and thank you very much for your time. If you do have any further questions on the service catalog or portal or anything else, please do contact us or follow us on social media. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.